Hello and welcome back to my channel. We're going to be talking about the carburetor on this 49cc CAG motor. And let me get you up to speed. So I went on to eBay and I bought a jet kit, right? It comes with 4 jets. And I also bought a couple of extra carburetors so I could experiment. And what I found is so example, these are the 2 carburetors I bought. A lot of the parts are interchangeable, but some of the parts are not interchangeable. Example, this float bowl doesn't fit onto that carburetor. That float bowl won't fit onto this carburetor, and neither one of these float bowls will fit onto the original carburetor for which I just showed you. Okay, so they are all the same carburetor, but they have just slightly different float bowls. However, the floats are the same. The gaskets are not going to be the same because the float bowls are different, just minimally. But um, the floats are, the jets are going to be the same. What I found when I bought the jet kit is the jet kit comes between 66 and 72. So I went into my regular carburetor, unscrewed the jet, put in the smallest jet I could find, which is the 66, and put it in, made sure the needle and seat was properly done, and it was still too rich. What I found out about these carburetors are that the main jet is the only metering that this thing does. The rest of the metering, it comes from this and the pin that you set here, right? That makes a difference between idle and full throttle. It doesn't make as much difference in full throttle because the needle is pulled up all the way out. When you put this back together, you have to remember that it goes like this. Then this sits down on top of it, right? That sits down on top of it. That all slides in. And then your spring goes on top of that. Then your cable goes through there and connects into there. What I found also is that the only way for me to get an accurate jetting, for example, this one is a 70. But like I said, I put in the 66 and it was still too big. So I went and got myself a bunch of fine wire. I don't even know if you're going to be able to see this. These are just the strands of wire out of a small little wire. And I experimented with 1 wire, 2 wires twisted, 3 wires twisted, 4 wires twisted, 5 wires twisted, 6 wires twisted, 7 wires twisted. What I found was the 7 wires twisted, and I'll show you how I did it. I take this, you twist them up, just a piece of wire, 7 wires twisted, 6 wires twisted, 5 wires twisted, whatever. Then you insert it into there. Now you don't want it to extend very much past where it comes up in right there. It may not focus, but let's see if I can get you to focus. Focus. So what happens is that you are cutting the fuel flow in your main jet. And so you only stick it in there to where it just comes through your jet, right? Just comes through your main metering jet. And as soon as you get it through there, then you just bend it over and wrap it around. And you say, well, that's pretty hack. Yes, it is pretty hack. But now that you've got that at least closed off, you can start experimenting. Then you just screw that right in to there. Now I have this one already in. I'll grab a screwdriver. I'll show you what I've done. You just unscrew this main jet. This is the stock main jet. Just screw that one in. Now that you've got this plugging up some of your main jet, then you're going to adjust how much your needle is going to go down in there, because what's going to happen is that needle is going to go all the way to the bottom of this tube and come just barely in. It's going to come just barely into here. See that? Just barely into there. If it goes all the way in, it will bottom out. It will close off the fuel. These carburetors do not have an idle circuit. From what I can tell, the idle is set by the idle screw, and what it does is in there, that idle screw in there, as you can see, you back it out, all that does is raise and lower your slide. So here on your slide is your idle screw, and the idle screw insert. So the idle screw will go onto this. It's a little ramp right here on your slide. So that idle screw prevents this from sliding all the way down. So the tighter you tighten the idle screw, the more the screw goes in, the higher this slide stays up inside your carburetor. Thus, the more air and fuel mixture is being pulled up through your main jet and into the carburetor. That is all there is to the idle circuit. What I found is that these are basically a no-name brand Chinese knockoff of a copied Japanese carburetor. So getting these carburetors to work exactly like a name brand is probably going to be near impossible, but you can get it a lot closer than you get it when it comes to you in the factory. So now that you got that, let me show you how to put it back together. You got your needle and seat. Your needle and seat, your barb has to go like that. It goes in there. Sets in. And once you get it close, it's not very good with big, clumsy hands, but you get the point. When you get it in there just right, it will slide together. There you go. Now, that is the way the needle and seat works in there. See that? Then once you get that, you're ready to put on your gasket. Then your float and your float bowl. Your float has these little ridges on this side. Those ridges go towards the bottom. So you can just set your float right on there, and then set your float bowl on there. Remember, what you've done here is put in your pieces of wire, however lean you want to make it. And this is all experimented on you. So there you go. Got your 2 screws. That will hold your carburetor together. And these do not have to be very tight. Just tight enough to keep the float bowl from leaking. Right? Now this screw down here is nothing but a drain screw. It does nothing but drain the float bowl from fuel. This is an overflow. If the needle and seat fail, it will flood, and instead of flooding all of the fuel into your engine or out of your air filter, it will flow through your overflow tube. And this is your shutoff valve, your on and off. The first things that I did to a shutoff valve is remove it and throw it in the trash. And I basically JB welded mine, right? I JB welded it shut and drilled a hole all the way through. I took it all apart, drilled it all the way through. And this is one of the main failures that'll happen first if you start running out of fuel or this thing starts leaking, right? When you take this apart, you'll see how cheaply made this thing is. And that's why it was one of the first things that failed and one of the first things that I fixed. So on to this carburetor. This is a carburetor that I am experimenting on. Let me show you the difference. You see, this is a factory. See how much more bigger that hole is? That's because I embiggened the hole. And then on the back side, that's your factory, and this is the embiggened. You see how much bigger that is. I'm not done experimenting with the carburetors yet. Now, to get that carburetor to work right, I actually took my little Dremel tool, and where this goes down into your carburetor and sits, I dremeled off the bottoms of these so that it would fit down inside here better, and it would actually close off. Because once you start embiggening these holes and doing modifications, you're not just going to modify this, you're going to modify other things. So that's your basic carburetor setup, and we'll go through some more tuning and advice on another video. Ciao.